Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to be looking at dimensions in consciousness, but we are going to be doing it in a very particular way. We have two very different sources, Edwin A. Abbott's Flatland, a romance of many dimensions, a novella about geometric realms, and then we also have The Law of One, channeled text.
And it's all about this really complex metaphysical system.
Yeah.
But you might be surprised at how much these two sources from very different periods in time, very different perspectives, how much they actually have in common when we talk about things like perception, societal structure, and even how consciousness itself evolves.
Okay, so I am really intrigued. Let's start with Flatland. What is it all about?
Okay, so picture a world that literally exists on a flat plane. The inhabitants of this world are geometric shapes, squares, triangles, circles.
Whoa.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. And the thing is, their society is super rigid. There's a hierarchy based on how many sides you've got.
So the more sides, the more power.
Exactly. It's fascinating how Abbott uses this whole geometric setup to basically just poke fun at Victorian society back in his day. So the more sides you have, the higher up you are, and the circles, they are the elite. They're at the very top. And just to make things even more interesting, he introduces the idea of color into this world.
Oh, okay. So how does that go over in a society that's so obsessed with, like, straight lines and angles?
Not well.
Yeah.
It causes a total uproar. I mean, especially for the women in this society who are literally just lines.
Okay, that's kind of a huge statement right there.
Oh, it's absolutely a social commentary. Even the smallest change, throws their whole system into chaos. Now the story really focuses on this character, A Square. He's your average two-dimensional guy living in Flatland. And he has this wild encounter with a sphere from, you guessed it, the third dimension.
Okay, I can't even begin to imagine trying to wrap my head around that if I were a square.
It'd be like trying to explain the internet to someone from the 1800s, right? I mean, A Square, all he sees is these circles kind of appearing and disappearing, changing size. It's totally beyond his comprehension. And that's really what Abbott's trying to do, is to get us to think about those limits of perception.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to put it. So we've got these Flatlanders. They can't even fathom a third dimension. But how does the Law of One tie into all of this? Because this is not about shapes, right?
No, not at all. But it does talk about dimensions, but in a totally different sense of the word. You can think of it as densities of consciousness, almost like levels of being that we evolve through.
Okay.
According to the text, we're currently in third density here on Earth, and we're heading towards fourth density. And it's not a physical move. It's more like a graduation. And it's all based on how much a soul has learned about, well, love and compassion.
Whoa. So it's like we are all students in this huge cosmic school. But what happens if we don't graduate?
Well, that's where the idea of a harvest comes in. It's not like some scary event or anything like that. It's more of a sorting process based on where your soul is at vibrationally. And the Law of One gets even more intriguing because it starts to talk about beings from other densities.
Okay. Like what kind of beings?
Well, for example, we have the Confederation. They're kind of these benevolent helpers, guiding us along. But then there's also this group, the Orion group.
Hold on. Orion group. Are they like the bad guys here? Are they like coming to attack us from another dimension or something?
Not exactly. They're more like these cosmic tempters, I guess you could say. They're trying to nudge people more towards selfishness and separation, but not through force or anything like that.
Okay.
It's all about this very subtle influence, playing on our fears and desires. And the Law of One is really, really big on the idea of free will.
Right.
So even these Orion beings, they can't control us. We have to choose to be influenced by them.
Okay, so this is getting a little mind-blowing for me right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Flatland with its very literal dimensions, and then the Law of One with these densities of consciousness.
Yeah.
They seem so different, but they're both kind of saying something about how limited our perception can actually be.
Absolutely.
Like, what if there's a whole other reality right here, right now, that we're just not tuned into?
Yeah.
Because we can't see it.
It's like, remember A Square trying to explain that third dimension to his fellow squares? They all thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is the Law of One kind of suggests that there are densities beyond fourth density, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever.
Right.
Which are probably totally beyond anything that we can even begin to grasp at this point. It makes you wonder, what are we missing?
Totally. It's like we're all just, these A squares bumping up against the edges of our understanding. But what I also think is interesting is that both sources talk about power dynamics. So in Flatland, It's all about how many sides you have, which is
Mm,
so interesting because here in the real world, it's often about things like wealth or status or even knowledge.
right.
And the folks at the top, they don't really want to change anything.
Absolutely. And the law of one kind of takes this idea to this cosmic level. You've got, the Orion group, they're trying to manipulate and control. And then on the other hand, you have the Confederation, who are all about like offering guidance, but respecting free will. It's almost like this battle for consciousness is playing out on this grand, huge scale.
It's so interesting. And isn't there something about women trying to change things in Flatland, too?
Yes.
How does that play out?
So in Flatland, women are depicted as just straight lines, which makes them extremely vulnerable to being misidentified.
Oh.
Yeah, and this leads to calls for social change. And color becomes a way for them to assert their individuality. So it's this really fascinating parallel to real world struggles for equality and, just that desire to be seen and heard.
Wow. Okay, so we've got this limited perception, these power struggles, and this desire for change all weaving their way through both Flatland and the Law of One. Where do we even go from here? Are we just stuck in our own little dimensions, unaware of what else is out there?
Well, not necessarily. The law of one really emphasizes this idea that we can evolve through these densities. We can become more loving and compassionate beings.
Okay.
And the key to it all, they say, is service to others.
Oh, interesting.
It's like the opposite of what the Orion group is all about.
Right, yeah.
So it's not just about existing, it's about how we choose to exist, how we treat each other. And that actually connects back to Flatland, too, right? I mean, A Square, he was all about trying to expand his understanding even when it got him into trouble.
Exactly. It's about having that courage to question our assumptions and be open to new possibilities, even when they seem impossible.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like the first step to kind of breaking out of our own personal flatland and seeing the universe with fresh eyes.
Okay, so I think we are starting to see how these two sources, Flatland and the Law of One, are a lot more than just like interesting stories.
Yeah.
I mean, they are really offering some serious food for thought about how we perceive reality and the choices that we make within it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to unpack here. I mean, we haven't even really gotten into the specifics of like how this evolution of consciousness actually works or the whole archetype thing in the Law of One.
Right, right. There is so much more to explore, especially how these ideas can even be applied to your own life, your own journey. Yeah, absolutely. We will dive into all of that right after this.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Flatland and the Law of One. Before the break, we were talking about how both of these sources really emphasize this idea of, evolving our consciousness and making choices that actually benefit other people. And the Law of One actually goes into even more detail about this process. They talk about specific energy centers that we have within us that really influence how we evolve.
Okay, so are we talking about chakras here?
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard about chakras. I've never really understood how they work.
Yeah. The Law of One refers to them as energy centers, and they actually align with the 7 major chakras that you find in a lot of spiritual traditions.
Oh, okay.
Each chakra has a specific color and vibration, and they start with red at the base of your spine and then go all the way up to violet at the top of your head.
So like a rainbow running through us.
It is, yeah.
Okay, but how do these chakras actually affect our consciousness?
Well, think of them kind of like filters for this universal energy or light that's flowing into us. Each chakra takes in a portion of this energy, processes it, and then expresses it a little differently.
Okay.
So, for instance, the red energy center that's down at the base of your spine, that one's all about survival, grounding, physical energy.
Yeah.
Then as you move up, the orange center, that deals with emotions, creativity, sexuality.
Okay.
And then as you go higher, the energy gets more refined and the themes become more complex.
So it's not just about like our physical body and stuff.
No, no.
It's about our emotions. It's about how we think.
Exactly.
And are the higher chakras then connected to these higher densities that we were talking about?
Yes. The Law of One says that each density actually has a dominant energy center. So we're in 3rd density right now, and that focuses on the green ray center. You might know it as the heart chakra.
Okay.
It's all about learning to love and be compassionate, to forgive. And as we master these lessons and our heart chakras really open up, then we start to get ready to shift into 4th density.
Okay, so what's 4th density all about?
Well, that's governed by the blue ray center, which is your throat chakra.
Okay, so is that about communication? Does that mean we all just become Like really eloquent speakers or something?
Well, it's more than just words.
Yeah.
It's about being able to express yourself authentically in every way. And get this, it's also about being able to perceive those higher dimensions that we were talking about earlier.
Wait, so as we evolve, we actually might start seeing these other realities.
That's what it suggests, yeah.
That's so wild. It's kind of like what A Square went through when he met the sphere, right?
It's a perfect analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
That struggle he had trying to explain that third dimension to those other squares, it really captures what we go through when we try to grasp concepts that are just totally beyond our current understanding. And the law of one really suggests that moving into fourth density might actually mean that we develop entirely new ways of perceiving reality.
Wait.
Maybe even new senses that we can't even imagine right now.
Okay, that's mind-blowing. So what can we do right now while we're still here in third density?
Yeah.
How can we prepare for this shift? Is it all about, like, meditating and trying to open up our chakras?
Well, the law of one really emphasizes seeking knowledge, meditating, and practicing compassion.
Okay.
It's about becoming more aware of your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and just realizing how they affect you and other people. It's about making conscious choices that really align with, love and service to others.
So it's not just about sitting around waiting for this harvest. We can actually do something. We have a part in all of this.
Exactly. Every moment is a chance for growth. Every interaction, every challenge, every experience, it can teach us something, and it can expand our consciousness.
That's really empowering.
Yeah.
And the more we choose love, the more we choose service to others, the more we're contributing to this positive shift for everyone. This reminds me of something I was reading in the Law of One about wanderers. Are those like the souls that volunteered to come to Earth at this time to help with the transition?
Right.
What's their role in all of this?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
Wanderers often feel this deep sense of purpose, like they're searching for something more. They might be drawn to, spirituality, metaphysics. They might even feel like they don't quite belong here.
So how can wanderers make the most of their time here? Do they have to do like something huge and dramatic to fulfill their purpose?
Not necessarily. It's not about like grand gestures or anything like that. It's more about just being your authentic self, radiating love and light in your own unique way.
Okay.
It's about living intentionally, making choices that align with your higher purpose, and hopefully inspiring others to do the same.
So it sounds like both the Law of One and Flatland are kind of saying that our personal transformation, like how we grow and evolve, is directly connected to the transformation of the whole planet.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. We're all part of this one huge interconnected web, Our choices, our actions, even our thoughts, they all have a ripple effect. When we raise our own vibration, we actually contribute to the upliftment of everyone.
That's a really powerful message, especially when things feel so divided in the world right now.
It is.
Speaking of patterns and interconnectedness, I know that the Law of One talks about archetypes.
Yes.
How can understanding those help us grow?
Well, archetypes are kind of like these universal blueprints or energy patterns that show up in different ways throughout human experience. Like you think of like the hero, the mother, the trickster.
Right.
They kind of represent these fundamental aspects of our collective psyche.
So they're like those classic characters that we see in stories again and again.
Exactly.
But how do they apply to real life?
Well, the Law of One suggests that by working with these archetypes, we can actually understand ourselves a lot better. We can understand the challenges that we face on our spiritual journey. By studying their traits, their shadow sides, and just their potential for transformation, it can give us these valuable insights into our own subconscious patterns and motivations.
So it's like a way to explore these deeper layers of our minds.
It is.
I know the tarot is often used to work with archetypes. Does the Law of One have anything to say about that?
Yes, it does, actually. The Law of One actually gives a really detailed interpretation of the major arcana in the tarot.
Oh, wow.
And it suggests that these cards actually represent this whole system of archetypal energies.
Oh, wow.
And you can use them for self-reflection, divination, even healing.
So that's something I'm definitely interested in learning more about.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Law of One is offering this whole other way to look at the tarot, not just as, fortune telling or something, but really as this tool to understand ourselves and where we fit in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly, yeah. And that's actually what we're going to be diving into after the break. We'll be exploring those specific archetypes represented in the major arcana and how the Law of One interprets their meaning and significance in our journey of spiritual evolution.
Welcome back to the show. I am so ready to talk about this whole tarot connection because, like I said, I've always been super fascinated by the tarot, but the Law of One has a completely different way of looking at these cards.
It's pretty amazing. They see the major arcana as this profound system of like archetypal energies that really play a role in how our consciousness evolves. It's
Yeah.
like a roadmap for consciousness itself, offering us guidance, insights as we go through those densities that we were talking about.
Okay, I love a good roadmap. But how does it actually work?
Well, each card represents like a stage of development, like a challenge that we need to overcome or a lesson to be learned. And the idea is that we can use these cards as tools to reflect on ourselves, to understand the energies that are at play in our own lives. How are these archetypes showing up for us? How are they influencing our choices, our experiences?
So it's like each card is holding up a mirror, showing us a different part of ourselves.
Exactly. So, for example, you've got the very first card, the Magician.
Okay.
And that represents willpower, the ability to manifest what we desire. It's about recognizing our creative potential, taking responsibility for the choices that we make.
That's a pretty powerful way to start the journey.
It is, yeah.
What about some of the other cards? I mean, did they each have, like, their own unique message?
Absolutely. So the High Priestess, that's card number 2.
Okay.
And that one is all about intuition, that connection to our subconscious mind, encouraging us to trust that inner wisdom, that hidden knowledge that we all have within. And then you've got the Empress, card number 3, symbolizing abundance, nurturing, the feminine principle.
Okay.
It's about embracing creativity, fertility, just the beauty of the natural world.
It really is like this whole cast of characters, each with their own special role to play in our journey.
And just like characters in a story, they interact with each other.
Right.
And these interactions, they create these dynamic tensions, these opportunities for growth. And that's what's so cool about the Law of One, is that it's suggesting that by understanding how these archetypes interact, we can gain valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities that we're facing in our own lives.
It's not just about, like, memorizing the meanings of each card. It's about using them as a way to look inward.
Yeah.
And to understand those patterns that are playing out our lives.
Right. And that's where the real magic happens, I think.
Yeah.
By engaging with these archetypes, meditating on their symbolism, asking ourselves how they resonate with our own experiences, that's when we can unlock these hidden truths about ourselves and our path.
It's like both Flatland and the Law of One are giving us these new lenses to view reality, both the world around us and our own inner landscapes.
It is. That's the beauty of exploring these really diverse sources, right?
Yeah.
They challenge us. They made us question what we think we know. They expand our awareness, and they really invite us to see the world and ourselves in these new and unexpected ways.
So at the end of this deep dive, what is the key takeaway here? What do you hope people will walk away with?
I hope they leave with a sense of wonder and possibility, I hope they feel inspired to explore their own consciousness, to really dive into those mysteries of the universe, and just to embrace that journey of spiritual evolution. And most importantly, I hope they remember that power of love, that ability to transform just about anything.
Well said. And that is what the deep dive is all about,
Yeah.
exploring these new ideas, expanding our perspective, and realizing how interconnected everything truly is. Thanks for joining us on this incredible mind-bending adventure. Keep exploring, everyone.